Hello, everyone. Welcome to Supply Chain Visit for Pharma podcast, where we guide the manufacturing and supply chain leaders to be the wizards of change in the era of digital transformation. I'm your host, Dr. Evren Ozkaya, founder and CEO of Supply Chain Wizard. And today I have a special guest, Katja Lumbar, Senior Director of Supply Chain at Insud Pharma. Welcome to the show, Katja.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So Katja has a long career in pharma and supply chain. Formerly, before Insud Pharma, you have been with Teva global operations as chief of staff, and then before that you were with Novartis and Sandoz. So you've been around a lot of generic supply chains. Katja has a very seasoned background. 16 plus years in different parts of the world, launching products, optimizing supply chains, optimizing networks. So tell us about yourself, Katja, in your own words.
Thank you. So Katja Lumbar, originally from Slovenia, a very beautiful and small country in Central Europe, where I also started my career in Lake Pharmaceuticals, at that point, part of Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. I've always had supply chain roles in my career, or supply chain related, more on the manufacturing side for part of my career in Europe, and also on the commercial supply chain side, where I was managing supply chain for Slovenian market and some of the Central European markets as well at that point. And in 2015, I was relocated to US, where I took over launch management in Sandoz for US market. My role then also expanded, and in 2018, I moved to Teva Pharmaceuticals, where I managed global launches coming from US sites or any other sites around the world, but launching from the US market. And I launched about 300 products with my team. So especially on the generic side, I have many experiences through those years. And on the brand side, that was more at the end of my career in Teva. I also launched 3 big brands that are currently driving Teva revenue on that side. So that was before my last job, where I was chief of staff for global operations. And there was mainly focused on transformation of global operations. Teva, being one of the largest generic companies in the world, also has multiple sites in all regions, 40 plus. So that was quite a big task last year. And this year, I'm part of Insud Pharma, also a global company, and I run supply chain for our generic and branded division. So both sides of the company as well. So that's
very good, very, very impressive. So you're now based in the US, in New Jersey area, right?
Correct. For the past 10 years already. It's hard to believe that, yes.
Yeah, it's, welcome. Well, you've been here as long as I've been here. So tell us about Insud Pharma. That's a Spanish manufacturer, but a global company, correct?
Correct. The headquarters is in Spain, and they also are a private company, not a public company. So already that is a quite big difference versus the companies I used to work for before. And they're expanding largely now around the world and growing significantly, about 30% in the past few years, especially on the generic side. So we're getting bigger and bigger, definitely.
So, Novartis, Sandoz, and Teva, these are the top companies in terms of size and generic, and also Novartis is branded. But now it's relatively smaller, still a global company. But what would you say the differences are from a really big pharma versus small to medium-sized pharma? Especially your job, as it was supply chain focused.
I would say the main difference is the culture of the company. With coming from a big pharma, there's a lot of hierarchy, different processes, sometimes bureaucracy, maybe even too much in some areas. While in a private and smaller company, things really can get done much quicker and also decisions, and also the opportunities to, on day-to-day basis, to talk to CEOs, either in the market or even globally. It's a very easy thing, right? Especially if you need a quick decision, which would help the market. So I think that's the main advantage. On the other hand, with a global company, large pharma, it's I would say a good learning opportunity, especially maybe more for a younger generation to be able to progress through the career and experience, many different things and grow and develop on different side of the business and even supply chain. And you can move around or be at one country, move to the other country. It's much easier, I guess, because they do develop people. Yeah.
Yeah. So running the supply chain, obviously nobody runs the supply chain in a large organization because so convoluted. But in a smaller, medium-sized company, like being the head of supply chain, where do you see that you have more advantages, and where do you see you have more challenges?
So I think the advantage or opportunity is that you can wear multiple hats, or I would say you even need to wear multiple hats. So you're getting pulled into many other functional areas, and you can learn more from that perspective. And it's sometimes also easier to get the insights for your own job. While in a big company, I think at least that was my experience. Sometimes there were more silos versus where I am today.
Mm-hmm. And what about the system side of things? In large companies, we assume that it's more mature in systems and maturity. Is it always the case, or is smaller companies are doing better on that regard with the system maturity and digitalization?
I think it depends, and I wouldn't necessarily say that larger companies have better systems or more developed systems. Between the bigger companies I worked for in the past, honestly, there was one that was the largest, but didn't have the best systems or the newer systems or capabilities. On the other side, now being part of the Insud Pharma, I'm very happy because they're very focused on AI, and things are happening significantly, faster than what I was used to from my past in other companies. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that. In a way, it's kind of scary, right? Because how fast we move. But I really hope that will help us being more efficient on day-to-day.
Okay, so before I go into AI, is definitely an important topic for our discussion in this podcast and digital. Let me switch gears based on your most recent job at Teva, where you were a chief of staff to global operations. It's a very big. I think it is the largest generic company in the world in terms of the sales as well as the complexity and number of SKUs being manufactured. So what is it like transforming a big network of manufacturing sites?
I would say it's hard. I cannot say it's easy, definitely. And specifically with Teva, when they were acquiring new companies, not necessarily always they were also standardizing the processes and systems between the manufacturing sites. And that has come more into the later phase now, which I think they made a huge progress related to that. But it was from, looking back from the time I joined and, to the time I left, at the beginning, it was really hard because it was hard to get to one set of numbers, set of truth in terms of supply chain as well. If you were not on the same systems, using the same reports, and, then also for the decision making, that was sometimes a challenge.
Mm-hmm. But of those pillars of transformation, like you mentioned, processes, systems, but there's also people. Are they equally difficult? Which one is more difficult than the others? It's necessary. All of them are necessary. Small or large pharma doesn't matter. But in a large, let's say 20 plus sites network, which one you struggled with the most?
I wouldn't even say necessarily it's related to a particular region or country. I would say it was very specific depending on what was the culture within the sites and how particular either general management or the overall management was managing the sites, and also what was the challenges they were facing with at the time when we were trying to make the change. So just to give you an example, if you had a site that for whatever reason they had some quality challenges or issues, right? They had to focus on that and to drive change at that particular site. At that point in time, probably wasn't the best thing to do, right? So we had to differentiate between the sites, what are able to make a transition at some point and put them in waves and in a different buckets and drive change that way, right? And have some good role models, and then also we had a key talent or people from the sites who were already transforming or has transformed to help the site that were at the beginning of their journey.
So there's this topic in larger organizations like multi-site network, this like operational excellence, whether it should be a globally led function or a locally led, globally supported function. And I've seen on LinkedIn lots of discussions around it with similar companies, and there are different opinions on that. Like, where is your head in terms of where should OpEx lie? Which should, global or local, which one should drive, which one should support? What is your thought on that?
Based on my experiences in my past, we always did a good job as being or rolling or driving that globally. Nevertheless, I do understand with the latest geopolitics challenges we have, and also COVID kind of brought that, right? It seems like the whole world is now moving towards more regional, which we might be forced to do as well at some point. But I've seen global companies, doing it in a very successful way.
Yeah, especially where the systems are now available in the cloud, right? Not like on-prem and local vendors and local support, is the proliferation of multiples of systems in different areas of supply chain and manufacturing. So cloud is more pushing us towards more central, more global. But I think, to an extent, the freedom should be given to the local sites to pick and choose how they implement it, in what order. Maybe some local preferences and flexibility should be given to make sure that it is the maximum output or results that they're looking for. I mean, that's my head. With everything, extremes are not so good in supply chains and manufacturing. Find the right trade-off and find the right balance, when it comes to driving operational excellence.
I would agree. And also, I would say it also depends on the commercial side of the business, because every region is dealing with different commercial challenges. And, OpEx is also supposed to support that. Obviously, if you have a large variability in the demand and on the markets where they're very challenging and the demand is moving a lot especially in the generic side of the business, it's also important so that the sites can be very efficient, have very short lead times, turnaround times, and support the business as needed.
Yeah, no, this is great. One other area in your background that I know is you have launched not tens, but hundreds of new products into the market, especially in generics. So what kind of, let's say, messages you would have on specifically product launches, new product introductions in generics? Why it is, exciting, why it is challenging, why, is it not being done well, or is it done well? What's your opinion in general in this functional area of new product launches? Because not everyone has good experience in there. Everybody knows a small portion of it, but launching a product is a very end-to-end experience, isn't it?
Correct, exactly. First of all, I did it with my team. I couldn't do it without my team. So I think talent and having the right, talent pool to manage launches is the most important thing. And I was very lucky, especially when I was at Teva, that we had a great team behind that. Another thing, personally, the way I am, I like changes, challenges, new things. So to have this kind of mindset, and also as a company, it's very important. And I also think the most important thing is that the company is willing to take risks, especially, and hopefully also they have resources to do so, because sometimes that can be costly as well. Specifically in Teva, I think we did take a lot of risks, and I think that's why we were so successful, in the past, launching so many different kind of generic products.
But companies try to, especially if you're launching high number of products, like you try to standardize and create a blueprint or a playbook for product launches. But it's also unique in terms of like different product needs, different markets, different type of molecules. So how do you balance, like what percentage you would say it is, it fits to the playbook? What percentage you think it's unique and you need to tweak it to the needs of the product and the markets?
I would say about 70% is as per the playbook, and I am all about standardization, also globalization, and same ways of working, so to say, around the world. I fully support that. I've seen it being very successful that way, with obviously also very good system support. That's key as well. Nevertheless, I always say the devil is in the details, and it depends on the country and market. As you say, 30% are crucial to be really successful. So I always think that we should have regional or local team driving that. Obviously, regulatory is a big deal. There are so many specifics how every regulatory agency gives approvals for launches, and again, going back to managing the risks, especially in US, as you may know, it's extremely important that you're on the market first, right? Because then later on you might lose the exclusivity and all the revenue. So many things needs to happen at risk if you want to be successful, but there's also a lot at stake. So scenario planning is one of the things that should be part of the day-to-day work, and it requires a lot of resources and creativity as well. And change is a must. Every day something can happen. Either you have a regulatory update that's changing, a legal update that's changing, market update changing the scenario. So there's a lot of things going on, but that's also exciting for me. That's why I love that part of my career.
I mean, it's also competing priorities with the same set of resources. So where do you resolve that? Like, what was the supply chain process? Was it the SNOP meeting? Was the specific commercial leadership, product launch committees? Like, where did you resolve these trade-off decisions?
Both, actually. I think that we need to work together as teams, right? First, functional. So for launch management specifically, I strongly believe it's in cross-functional collaboration. And on the supply chain side as well, obviously every factory has dedicated lines or not dedicated lines to some products, and launches are normally an outlier, right? They don't happen every month with the same volumes or same cadence. So prioritization is a key. And I think launches are normally the future of any company, and they normally need to be prioritized, but not necessarily every launch is the top launch, right? To prioritize it and delay something else. So that's why I think SNOP is important to address those issues so that the company can make the right decision.
Yeah, so let's come back to the topic of AI and digitalization. You mentioned that your company is currently adopting this really fast. So between the topics we discussed about major transformations in the supply network or manufacturing network, the product launches, and all the regulatory, supply, manufacturing, supply chain, commercial, elements of it, where do you see AI or more advanced analytics having an impact, or use cases that are delivering results already in pharma supply chain?
So I think it's about having timely information and accurate information to make the right decisions. Sometimes in my past, if you had like something to decide on, it could take us 2, 3, or 4 weeks just to compile the information, to get alignment from everyone, and then present it to our management. If we have now everything on, hopefully at some day, on our phones, right? And we could also run scenarios with help of AI, obviously that would help us make decisions much quicker and do a better, job with also driving our revenue. So I think that's the main thing. also just day-to-day tasks, I would say. I was just yesterday, I talked to my team and we had a workshop on Monday, and we wrote a lot on the sheets, and we were talking about, who will now put all of that in a presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, let's just put it in an AI, right? We have an internal AI. They can do that for us in a couple of minutes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
people tend to forget that. It's still helpful, right? Just to do that, and then we can focus and rather work on the action item versus putting things on the slides, right? Just a very minor day-to-day thing.
So like personal productivity, getting answers quickly, like turning pictures into like, immediate files that you can work on. So yeah, I think that everyone needs to see these opportunities and adapt it, because if you don't, then you're falling behind against your peers who are maybe doing like 5 times, 10 times more workload with utilizing these tools. But like, let's take the AI and digital into manufacturing. That's one of my specialty areas that I like to talk about. And pharma is not necessarily doing great in terms of adopting digital technologies in manufacturing, because most of our pharmaceutical plants are old, like 30, 40, 50-year-olds. Some of the plants that we work with, they're 70, 80-year-olds, right? So why do you think some of these, adoption challenges are at play? Like, what is getting in the way? Like, it shouldn't be like these leaders don't believe in digital. I mean, nowadays, everyone lives and breathes about digital and AI. So it's not like they don't believe in it, but what gets in the way of digital transformation in pharma manufacturing, you think?
I think it's sometimes also alignment, within the company. What type of AI do we want to use, or systems, for particular part of the manufacturing business, so to say, right? So what AI would you use for quality? What AI would you use for manufacturing output or tracking packaging, or So I've seen that there was in my past too much discussion around that, what's best on the market and what's not best. And then also costs, right? Because not every company has the money to invest necessarily or right away. So I think that's what I've seen in my past. But otherwise, yeah, they're all for digital. Nevertheless, some of them were also scared, right? Because maybe that would be too transparent to internal stakeholders. How are they doing? Especially if had some challenges, either in production or some failed batches for some reason, because obviously that would be very visible immediately to management as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have this belief that like transparency is great for people with open books. They want to share, they want to improve. They are not afraid of like sharing their poor performance because it's an opportunity to improve. But it's really not so good for people who would like to hide things or don't want to communicate anything. So like it's part of the challenge in the culture or the people side of the equation. But there is no stopping it, right? Like everything is becoming more digital and more transparent. So instead of fighting it, let's adapt it. But my thought process is always like, if this is so obvious, if the ROI is so clear, why not do it now? Why not do it this year? Why we are pushing it again multiple years down the road? So that's the part that I want to really understand different opinions, because sometimes maybe it's just a mental roadblock. Like sometimes like we need just to unblock it to show that, look, let's start small, let's do something now, show the results, and then we go to the next level. There's always something happening in manufacturing anyways, isn't it? Like there's an MES implementation, there's an ERP upgrade, there are product launches, limited resources. It's easy to find reasons why not to do, right? Like, oh, I'm busy.
Correct. Definitely more reasons for not to do than to do. But as you said, I think also it's a mental block, and it's more about driving change and support that transition. Definitely.
So, of your experiences of working with site leadership teams in your global transformation, what are the characteristics that you would say the site heads that they demonstrate this openness and get the most success out of their transformation? Like, what type of site leaders or site GMs are those that are being most successful with this versus not?
I think those that are very well connected with the business, and always be open to share information with everything that's going on, and supporting this end-to-end view, right? Which I think for supply chain is the crucial thing, because if they don't do that, and they think even if they have a challenge, as we discussed, right, and they don't communicate to the business, then business might overcommit to the customers, and then if you don't deliver, we have failure to supply, and not only did we have lost sales, we also have additional costs related to that. And on the other hand, if they communicate in time, the business can manage customers, and maybe based on the good relationships, right, they can delay or even agree
manage expectations, right?
Manage expectations, right? So I think with that mindset, we could all be much more successful if we work together. So I'm always for collaboration, right?
Collaboration, transparency, and being a little vulnerable, maybe like a poor performance or a declining performance. It's a business problem. It's not personal problem. It's like we need to do maybe some changes to fix that, and you need help in some cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So switching to my let's say wrap up questions around advice, like what would you give, for example, take the Katja, the early career professional, enthusiastic, getting ready to rock the world in Slovenia, in Sandoz, Lek world. What would you give your younger self as an advice if you were just like starting in your career?
I would say try to learn as much as possible, and be fearless, and do whatever you think you should do or you think it's right until somebody stops you. Because when I was early in my career, I was always worried, oh, what if somebody wouldn't like that, or what would this person say if I did that? And today I would say just do it, because I think that drives the progress. And I like, even in US, I have some very fearless or very brave young talents, right, who I see just go and do their thing. And I learn a lot from them. It's not that they're only learning from me, but I learn from them as well. And I really like seeing them growing and coming up with ideas and discuss. And I would say also always speak up. That's the most important thing about good things or bad things. I always tell my team, just speak up, even though you think I won't like it or somebody else won't like it, speak up, and we'll discuss. And I think that drives, improvements in the future.
Yeah, that's great feedback. That's a great advice to younger professionals, because in larger companies, especially, it's hard to speak up. Larger companies, maybe there is no medium or a forum to talk about this stuff, because everybody reports to everybody else in multiple layers, and maybe there's like no way that you can be impactful, you think, but there's always a way, right? Especially if you go for it. But maybe on the flip side, you need to also know the business, isn't it? Like, to understand, like, you cannot just do anything in pharma, especially when the GMP regulations are concerned. So any idea wouldn't fly. So maybe I would add something to that, like be fearless, do and speak up, but then seek a lot of guidance and mentorship. I think the young generation nowadays, they don't do this much. They either think they know everything, or they just assume it's self-doubt, that they don't know much, so they don't want to do too much, but they don't ask for help. They don't go for those mentorship opportunities, where if you ask very senior leaders, they're often very open to share their experiences. And I'm sure you are the same way. If a young professional approaches you and wants to, hey, can I meet with you every 6 months, like 30 minutes? I want to run by you what I'm doing and get some advice. I'm pretty sure that you're going to say yes.
Correct. I for sure will. And I encourage everybody to do that. So yeah, it's a great thing to do.
Excellent. And then one last maybe advice question around like your title, previous title was Chief of Staff. Not that many companies have this role. And it may also be like, be pulled into different directions. Or what does it really mean? Is it like assistance? Is it like strategy? Is it execution? Is it tactical? But apparently that had a huge impact in how you learned, and then the impact to the global operations at Teva. So, for those future Chief of Staff candidates or people thinking about like, what is this role? Like, should I even consider it? What would you say?
I would say if you're even considering it, go for it, because it's a big opportunity. And as you mentioned, yes, you might be an assistant one day, right? But maybe tomorrow you're going to impact the strategy of one of the largest company in the world. So it varies. It varies from the different tasks or the needs of the day. And it's really on the day-to-day basis, because priorities might change every day. Also, if you're part of such a large company as I was, right, it involves a lot of traveling. So you're one day in Europe, all right, and then maybe next 2 days in Canada, and then again you're back in Europe, or you go to Israel or anywhere else in the world. And it is demanding, I have to say. You have to have a lot of, yeah, the
And energy.
energy to do that. But I would advise, if you're even thinking about it, just go for it, and don't think too much, because it's a huge learning opportunities. And also the fact that you are able to learn from the really senior leaders from the company on day-to-day basis, understanding also the company, how the company works, company politics, everything that comes with it. And it's an amazing opportunity. So if somebody asked me, I would do it again, no problem.
Nice, nice. Be careful what you wish for. And as our audience grows and there are other pharma leaders looking at this, and part of it is like, oh, there's leaders who have done this before, and and connect with you. But this was a fun conversation. Appreciate it. We talked about big pharma, small pharma. We talked about transforming a large network of manufacturing. We talked about product launches and some generic, aspects of it, as well as the AI and digital. And these are all intertwined in our daily lives. But let's also not forget that, we are always growing and learning, and we are being inspiring to those who are starting their career. So sharing these experiences is very valuable. So thank you very much for coming for today and joining us, Katja.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.